Well, we did it. After years of wondering when and how Las Vegas would pull out of the recession, we can honestly take a look around and see where we are and where we're going. And right now, we are back in black. Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Dudon, and for the next half hour, we're going to take a look at some of the big lessons Las Vegas has learned over the last few years and get a sneak peek into what our future holds. But first, in order for any of this to make sense, we have to take a hard look back. It was a situation that affected so many of us and the roofs over our head. What many thought was going to be their piece of the American dream turned into a financial nightmare. And while some are still dealing with it, others have found their happy ending. 2007, a time when Las Vegas was booming. New homes, new businesses, the definite peak in Las Vegas's growing economy. Ashley Williams and her husband Jacob decided 2007 was the year they were going to become homeowners. It seemed like the smart thing to do.
It was very exciting. We had just had our first baby, and everyone was saying that this was like the next step in what we needed to do to be like a family and have that all set up. So we were really excited about it.
They never dreamed that the house they planned on calling home would slip away in a matter of a couple of years. Even before they moved in, owning a home proved to be a challenge.
Our interest rate was actually changed on us once we were within the 30 days of closing, which they don't allow anymore, but that happened. And so our payment increased within the last 3 days, even before we moved into the house, by a few $100s.
But they made it work, and it did work until a year later. The family was growing even more, and so was their financial strain. Her husband's overtime was taken away, also taking away the little bit of financial cushion they had left.
I would say scary, definitely, and a little bit of like guilt or shame too. It felt like, you know, if you're in a financial situation that's difficult, then you must not be managing your money well, or you must have a shopping problem, and it was really none of those things.
And she's right, it was none of those things. These feelings of guilt and shame were being shared by tens of thousands of Las Vegans who were in the same position. The Williams family, like most, tried to sell, but their house was underwater. A short sale also fell through after the bank took too long to reply to an investor.
We had to walk away from it because we would have never reaccumulated that equity, and we wouldn't have been able to continue with the payment that we had.
It would be 5 long years of renting before they would be able to ever buy a house again. But in 2014, it happened. Their dream of owning a home again did come true, but their approach this time around was much different.
We were ultra conservative when we bought this house that we're in currently, and sometimes we think that maybe we shouldn't have been so cautious, but we really just never wanted to be in the position we were in back in 2008, and so we really were cautious with what we were approved for and what we actually ended up spending.
In the end, the Williams family, now a family of 6, has their happy ending. But not everyone is there. The Weaver family is very much still in the thick of it. Brandon Weaver is in the middle of a short sale. He bought his home in 2009, but shortly after, lost his construction job.
Thought it was, a sure thing. And so, not knowing what's ahead, and the recession hit, and that laid everybody off.
The Weaver family has been scraping and scrambling ever since just to get by. They, too, have a growing family with 3 children.
I was real stressed out, and I just had to cope with, just my wife being stressed out and the kids, babies, just supporting them. I had to be a man and do what I had to do, basically.
Brandon is still looking for work, and so far has been unsuccessful. These are the kinds of stories you would hear daily. If you weren't affected by the downturn, someone you knew was. One of the worst hit areas of town was Ward 6, Mayor Pro Tem Steve Ross's ward. He refers to this area as the epicenter for disaster during the recession. He, too, was personally touched by the recession's wrath.
My company was one of them. We're one of the casualties of the recession. I was an electrical contractor for 10 years, and when the economy tanked, we had to close our doors, and it was a hard thing to do.
But hope is back and stronger than ever. This is now what you see in Ward 6, signs all around that things are getting better.
We're on an upbeat. We're moving forward. We've learned our lessons from yesterday. We picked ourselves up, brushed ourselves off, and we're moving on.
Although it may have seemed like a dismal future for many, Mayor Pro Tem Ross has known for quite some time that growth and recovery was coming.
So home builders like the one behind me, they were in my office a year and a half ago, starting to talk about changing site plans, changing driveway lengths, changing backyard setbacks. So I saw it early coming, and I knew it was coming. It was a good sign for me.
But Mayor Pro Tem Ross also says it was a definite wake-up call to diversify our economy and to remember the lessons we've learned. For Las Vegas residents, moving forward is the goal. And while some, like the Williams family, are having success, the Weaver family is a reminder that some are still struggling. It wasn't just people's homes being underwater. People were losing their jobs, and fast. City of Las Vegas employees were no exception to the recession. But now, after many years, their lives are getting back to normal. The last few years have been a roller coaster of emotion for Megan, Sandy, and Winston. These three are just a handful of city employees who got caught in the wake of the recession's path, throwing their jobs and lives into chaos. They were part of the city's job cuts or reduction in force. For Megan, who worked in neighborhood services at the time, 2010 would prove to be one of the most challenging years of her life.
It was hard. My husband had already been laid off from the city. I was 9 months pregnant at the time. Yeah, so we were already going through it. And then he ended up losing his job twice more, and then lost the house and did everything like that. So it was tough. Definitely the toughest thing we've ever had to deal with. I was actually told I was safe, so I was not on guard at that point, but it was a last minute change. I was notified April, and then I made my separation in May.
While Megan may not have seen it coming,
hey guys, I gotta unplug you for a minute.
Winston Stiles, a building inspector, knew it was just a matter of time.
The work got slow, so whenever there's not a lot of work to keep everybody busy, of course everybody kind of worries about it. They went by seniority, and I wasn't at the top of the seniority, so I got laid off.
The job that he loved was gone, which meant some luxuries at home also had to go. But Winston's experience with layoffs didn't stop there.
When I got laid off with the city, they found me a job in the city as a traffic signal. And so it was less pay, but I was still working. And then I finally got laid off from there. So I got on with the county. I was actually a county inspector for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And then they finally laid off.
As for Sandy Foley, well, she had a bit more luck. She worked as a manager at the city's former tennis center, but she was warned cuts were coming.
I had put so much time and effort into getting that place open, even pre-employment with the city, that it was emotionally difficult in that regard too. I was very worried about our employees, the people that worked there, what they were going to do. So it wasn't only about myself, but it was about them and their families, myself and my family.
Sure enough, the tennis center was outsourced, but thankfully the new owners decided to bring on Sandy, leaving her out of work for only a few months. These are just 3 employees of hundreds who were left to maneuver their way through an uncertain time. City Employment Services Manager Lynn Barbosa recalls the city had to cut hundreds to keep up with the downturn.
Between 2008 and 2010, approximately 200. In 2008, the area primarily impacted was building and safety because of the construction trades and the immediate impact on development in the valley. And then an additional 200 that were reduced in classification. So just what that means is contractually, you could have return rights back to a lower position.
And though it had to be done, she still remembers the pleas for help, employees asking for any way to stay on. Lynn's hands were tied.
There's no easy way to tell them that they are personally being impacted by these eliminated positions. And all of us knew that it could be any one of us at any time. So it was a scary time for us.
But there was some silver lining. Thanks to a contractual obligation with the different unions, these employees were put on a callback list to be the first called if their job was reopened. And while that gave these employees some hope, that hope was fading.
Within the first year, yes. Year 2 rolls around and you're kind of like, still holding on to a little bit of hope, and then year 3, you're kind of like, okay, it's never going to happen.
But it happened. All 3 got the call they were hoping for.
So I was like, yes, because I hadn't been working for the entire 3 years I was off.
Megan was brought back to work in parking services. And Winston? Well, because he made an effort to keep up with all of his certifications during the recession, he was eventually hired back as a combined building inspector.
I didn't think it would ever happen, but it did happen, and I'm happy to be here. I love the job, and I just love being here.
As for Sandy, she is now the Principal Community Program Specialist at Mirabelli Community Center.
I was so caught off guard when the city called and said, you know, did you know that you're next person on the list? And I was like, the list? This list is still going? I never had a thought that I would come back to work for the city. But when they called, I was like, wow, this is awesome.
And there are dozens of stories just like these 3, with hopefully more happy endings still to come.
We've already reinstated 108 up to this point. So I think up until December, definitely there's still hope, and they're rehirable in other positions. And that's happened as well, where people not even necessarily in their same classification have just reapplied, went through the process, and been rehired because they had a great employment history with us.
And though it was a rough few years for these employees, in the end, both sides are getting back to normal. Employment is an area that has shown tremendous growth. At the peak of our economy in 2007, Las Vegas's unemployment rate was at 4.5%. But as you can see, from 2008 through 2010, the unemployment rate drastically went up, reaching 13.8% until it started slowly improving again in 2011. We are currently at 7.3%. It's time now to talk about the bread and butter of our economy, gaming and tourism. It also took a hit. In 2007, our visitor volume was at 39.1 million, but in 2008 it started declining all the way down to 36.3 million in 2009. But we quickly started seeing improvement. In fact, 2014 was the highest visitor volume number Las Vegas has seen, with 41.1 million visitors. Well, back then, people, whether residents or tourists, just didn't have the disposable income to spend, which had a trickle-down effect, hitting businesses hard. But it wasn't all loss. In fact, some local businesses managed to survive the downturn. One local business owner realized just how much she could handle when everything was on the line. It's the ultimate sugar rush, a super secret buttercream recipe that has launched Retro Bakery in Northwest Las Vegas to top-notch status in the eyes of Las Vegas residents. Cupcakes and flavors you thought were only possible in your dreams are brought to life each morning thanks to owners Carrie and Brian Haskell. This business off of North Durango and Farm may be small, but it has a big presence in Las Vegas.
My mind frame was open the business. I was not aware of what was going on. I knew they were building the building near my home, and I knew that our neighborhood didn't have a bakery, and I knew we could run a successful bakery, but I didn't realize the economy was about to be unsuccessful.
I sent the invoice, but you can give her that if you want.
The only problem, Carrie and her husband opened up at the very beginning of the downturn, not realizing she would be operating the most crucial years of her business during a major recession.
I just kept my head down. You can't focus on the negative. It was like, well, we're open and we signed a lease, so I don't want to fail. So I worked really hard, and we didn't hire as many people as I'd want to in the beginning, because obviously I needed help, but we took a lot of the burden on ourselves and worked, 13, 14-hour days and stayed open and, just literally worked every single day for 90 days straight. We didn't have a day off, just to make sure to, get the steam rolling of being a new business. Initially, I wanted to hire at least 2 or 3 people to run the counter, have a dishwasher, have a couple of bakers. That's a no. I was the baker, I was the counter girl, Brian was the back, he was the delivery guy for a very long time. We had one counter girl who was a volunteer for a long time.
And this wasn't the type of situation where they had nothing to lose. They had everything to lose.
When you put all your cards on the table, you have to keep playing.
So she found creative and innovative ways to get her business's name out there.
Social media, yes. I'm a big fan of social media, and becoming part of the community. One of my big things with advertising is I don't like to pay for advertising. I like to do charity events. I like to do, school events and donate my cupcakes, and people eat them. They come back, they go, "Where's Retro Bakery?" "Oh, it's in my neighborhood." And then they want to support a local business.
And it worked. After nearly 8 years of hard work, you can see just how far they've come. She now has a staff of 10. Carrie believes her willingness to stay small during the recession helped them succeed, saying every penny mattered and they were able to stay in control. Now, in the good times, she doesn't have to stress as much, knowing that repeat customers will stay faithful.
You can definitely see a pattern of sales. You know the holidays are going to be good. You know the weekends are going to be good. There's no sweating like, are people going to come in? They're going to come in. The phone's going to ring. You can definitely see a pattern, especially if you establish yourself as reliable and delicious.
And she believes things are only going to get better, already seeing signs of an improving economy.
I see a lot of people celebrating a lot more and including, a major cake instead of like a smaller cake. They kind of go above and beyond with their parties for sure.
But always remembering it's the hard work that got her here.
And now 8 years later, we have one day off.
Unfortunately, a lot of businesses were not able to survive the downturn. But according to the Business Licensing Department, that's changing. In recent years, they've seen a trend upwards in people applying for business licenses. According to the City Business Licensing Department, between 2010 and 2012, the city saw 15% of businesses close, the majority of those in the service industry like landscapers. But those numbers are improving. We have currently gained back 10% of those businesses. However, something really interesting happened at the end of 2012. Home occupation license numbers went up by 25%. So where are we now? Well, according to one local economic analyst, we are in a restoration phase, and we are headed in the right direction to diversifying our economy.
We're not all the way back to where we were. There's still a lot of businesses and individuals that are struggling. I don't want to minimize that in any way, but we're creating more jobs, our population's growing, incomes are rising, housing prices are going up. Those are good things for us overall.
Some good news from the man who knows Las Vegas's numbers best. Applied Analysis Principal Analyst Jeremy Aguero has seen Las Vegas through the good times and the bad, and says the recent economic downturn was one of the worst. But we're bouncing back in all aspects: jobs, construction, and housing, to name a few.
If we look over the past year, the area of our economy that's adding the most jobs is hotels, casinos, leisure, hospitality, restaurants, those type of things. If we think about it in terms of percentage growth rates, then what we're seeing is that construction is actually growing much faster than it was before.
Aguero says instead of seeing rows and rows of foreclosures, we're now seeing new neighborhoods filled with families starting over. You may have noticed housing prices are quickly increasing, sparking fears that we could be creating another bubble that will eventually burst.
We are absolutely concerned about pricing and the fact that that's outstripping the ability for a homeowner to buy a home in Southern Nevada. But today, the median price of a home is about $170,000. That's about where it should be, maybe even a little bit lower than where it should be for the incomes that we have as a community.
And new homes and new projects mean more work for construction workers. The big concern right now is finding those workers. Thousands left the market during the decline and have yet to return.
At the peak of the market, we had about 112,000 construction workers. We've got about half of that today, right? And I'm not suggesting for a moment that we even want to get all the way back to that peak level. But what we do need is enough workers so that when a home builder wants to build homes or an office developer wants to build an office, that they don't have to essentially start bidding up the cost of doing that because labor is scarce. That is a problem for us right now, and one that we're keeping a really close eye on in 2015.
As for population growth in general, that is also increasing at a greater rate. Aguero says our population has always gone up, even during the downturn, but slowed significantly. From 2005 to 2006, our population grew by nearly 75,000 people. But this is when we started to slow down. You can see that between 2009 and 2010, at the height of our recession, our population grew by a smaller number, nearly 12,000. But since then, the numbers are going up again. Aguero says it's good news. Right now, the Las Vegas metropolitan area is the 7th fastest growing metro area with over 1 million people in the United States, growing at about 1.5% to 2%. But he says he doesn't want us to get back up to the numbers we saw in 2006.
I don't want to see 2.5% growth. I really don't. And the reason for that is we need to be cautious about how quickly we grow. We have infrastructure issues. Transportation infrastructure is limited. Water infrastructure is limited. We need to be thoughtful in terms of how we grow. That's a lot easier to do at 1.5% than it is 2.5%.
One area of growth that Aguero is specifically interested in is downtown Las Vegas.
Downtown Las Vegas has the highest lease rate among office buildings and the lowest vacancy among office buildings of any submarket in Southern Nevada today. Why? Because people are thinking about it differently, because businesses may be expanding or diversifying in that area. It may not look like Tesla. It may not look like a new unmanned aerial vehicle company moving in. It may look or feel a little different than the traditional economic development that's maybe splashed on the front page of the newspaper, but it's no less important.
In fact, a quick glimpse downtown shows the tremendous growth, everything from commercial business to residential. A lot of what you see today is thanks to the Downtown Project, an organization that focuses on entrepreneurial energy, innovation, and upward mobility. So far, the Downtown Project has allocated $350 million to help in revitalizing downtown. Their container park is a prime example. Some of the businesses you see here are financed by the Downtown Project, giving entrepreneurs a chance to flourish.
This was an area which didn't seem like it was in the best of states economically, whereas now very different. But it's required a huge investment from a private investor to, I guess, make this happen down here. So I've certainly seen in 3 years a massive transformation.
Mark Rowland is the CEO of DTP Ventures, which was created by the Downtown Project. His job is to make sure these businesses have the tools they need to succeed. The Downtown Project owns 62 acres of land in downtown Las Vegas.
The community came together to say these are the sorts of things that we would like in this community. So doggy daycare was requested, bars were requested, hangout places were requested, yoga studio was requested, juice bar was requested. So there was a bit of a community outreach initially to say what would people like. That then created a big long list of potential investments that we've made. Then it was a case of just searching for the right entrepreneur or the small business owner that would actually want to come downtown to give it a go.
And those few lucky business owners, some finance, some giving it a shot on their own, are all thrilled to be part of the growth. From uptown children's boutique to a salon, this out-of-the-box approach is being welcome and for startup businesses, coveted.
I fell in love with Las Vegas 5 years ago. As soon as I stepped foot on East Fremont, I knew that I had to do something here. So I moved down here, and now, incredibly, I'm so blessed to be opening a salon here.
And keep in mind, it's not just success at Container Park. The Hydrant Club, considered a doggy daycare for the urban crowd, opened its doors thanks to the Downtown Project, making this up-and-coming community feel like just that, a community, rather than just a stop for tourists. Rowland says the goal is to inspire people to come downtown.
Downtown Las Vegas had a particular brand image a bunch of years ago, which obviously takes a bit of time to change in people's minds. But we're hoping that actions speak louder than words, and when we are able to actually attract someone to come to downtown Las Vegas, they actually go, "Wow, this is really amazing."
According to the Downtown Project, they bring in close to $119 million to the local economy every year, with an anticipated $220.7 million yearly once all of their projects are complete.
I see continued momentum in the downtown area, respecting the fact that it's going to be a little bit here and a little bit there. It's going to be 2 steps forward and 1 step back, because that's how it works, and we need to be prepared for that.
But Aguero reminds everyone that we should not forget what we've learned along the way.
To be honest with you, 5 to 7 years down the road, I think we're going to be looking at another recession. As a community and as a city, we are better prepared now than we were 5 years ago for when that happens next.
I know it's scary to hear that another recession is coming, but it's normal. In fact, experts say that recessions take place every 7 to 10 years, but it's all about how prepared we are, and that's a lesson we learned the hard way. As you just heard, we are in a restoration phase, and this raises a lot of questions for the city of Las Vegas. Do we want to get back up to the levels we saw in 2007 before the recession hit, or is it better to stay small? City Manager Betsy Fretwell gives us her vision.
For a long time here in Southern Nevada, local governments were able to throw money at problems. Throw money and bodies, because we were going so fast that we really didn't necessarily have an opportunity to really think through, is this something that we can keep up with if those dollars slow down? reverse course. We learned the hard way.
After dealing with years of uncertainty and cuts, City of Las Vegas City Manager Betsy Fretwell was thrilled to see Las Vegas is back in the black. She remembers getting financial numbers at the very beginning of the downturn.
It was like a train out of control. It was very fast, and every number got worse every month.
But that was the beginning of a learning process for every executive and city council member. The city had to make cuts, but still be there for the citizens who relied on them.
Can we do differently the process that maybe was put in place 20 years ago, that now instead of 4 people to do it, maybe we can do it with 2? How do we make that happen? Because those were the kinds of cuts we were having to make.
Betsy says Parks and Rec took a 50% hit, as did Cultural Affairs. The city eliminated 615 positions. She uses the analogy of pruning a plant. You cut back, but not so much that you kill it. It has to have enough room to grow back. And that's exactly where we are today.
I still feel like the recovery is a little soft, but I feel like it's more robust now.
They are slowly bringing back positions, but the city workforce is still 20% below what it was in 2001. So where do we go from here? Should we bring back all of the 615 positions we lost? Betsy says there's no magic number she's striving to hit. It's all about engaging with citizens to best figure out what everyone needs.
Because what you want is outcomes. How happy are your citizens? What condition are your assets in? Those kinds of measures tell you a lot more than some random ratio.
And so far, we're on the right path.
Our survey results from our customers, as well as our employees, are completely on the upswing. I mean, we just knocked it out of the park on citizen satisfaction and customer service this year. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of it because we're not back at 3,200 employees like we were when I took over as city manager.
She believes growth will continue and hopes to see most of that continue with the medical district and downtown Las Vegas.
So I think if we can build around that, we will have a really unique city, and one that people will be very proud of, and one that will be a lot more economically stable, because we will have all these different businesses that will be able to thrive and not be quite as dependent on discretionary income as a tourism and convention business is. I like to describe it as we need things that'll zig when that zags.
And because another recession is sure to come, she says we'll be ready.
I think we'll be more resilient. I really do. I think that we've learned a lot. What we have to do is make sure we don't forget.
But don't think she's all about playing it safe. She says taking some risks can sometimes have amazing results.
Let us try some things. If it doesn't work, we can roll it back. But if it does work, or it opens a door to something that will work even better, that's what's going to keep our community positioned to be on the top of its game for a very long time. And I think we can do that. We've got the right people in this city to be innovative and creative and achieve those kinds of results. And I think our citizens will be proud.
And together, we can hopefully continue to remain in the black. It's an exciting time to be working, living, and playing in the city of Las Vegas. We can't predict what the future holds, but we can be prepared as best as possible. Hopefully, the future brings us success and growth. For KCLV, I'm Melissa Duran.